Hello everyone and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Back in Their Day, the show that delves into our history and pulls out new things each time. And today we got something fun for you, at least one or two things.
Yep, as you know, we're talking about that 70's show, and today the president comes into town. We'll see how they deal with that.
Ooh, the president!
Before we get started though, we open up the traditional way we do on this show. They're in the basement. You know, they're shenanigans. Having their fun. This time they're doing this odd thing. Kelso has them pitted up into a door frame. Such door frame.
See it?
And they are using their arms to apply as much pressure to the sides of this door frame as much as they can for 1 minute. And apparently at the end of this, your muscles are so tense from pushing up against this solid door frame that apparently they give you a floating sensation. And I feel like I'm flapping my wings like in that movie Angels in the Outfield.
Great movie, by the way, but I've actually done that. It's one of those childish things that you kind of do with your friends. And I don't know, you might want to watch TikTok because we might come out with a small video of us all being doofs and making something fun happen.
And that's always been my answer when somebody says, you know what we should do? And it makes no sense to anybody else, but now that you watched the episode, you have watched the episode, haven't you? Let's do that door thing again.
Ah, yes, the door thing.
All right, and as the episode continues, as Kevin said, we find out that the president is coming to town. Kitty's freaking out, of course. She wants the house ship-shape, all nice and perfect. She wants Red to take the oil stands out of the garage while she bakes red, white, and blue pies.
Because, of course, the president's doing a door-to-door as he comes to town. That's what they do, right? They go to every single individual American and say, thanks for being American.
Yeah, go to door, kick babies, kiss babies, something like that, yeah.
I guess it's however you feel about babies.
I really hope it's not kick babies, because I could see a couple of them doing that should they have been allowed, but I'm starting to think maybe not so much. So, Gerald Ford's coming to town. Before we go on, they're kind of discussing what happened and how Kitty references how people voted for Gerald Ford, and Red straight up says no one voted for Gerald Ford. So Gerald Ford, I discovered his actual name. I don't know why they changed it. But it was Leslie Lynch King Jr. I mean, I kind of get it.
Anybody named Leslie is going to make an alias for themselves. Leslie? Come on, Jerry. Really?
How do you get a nickname off a nickname off a nickname? Or off your real name?
Producer Dick Wolf.
He would become the 40th president or vice president of the United States, following the resignation of the then vice president Spiro Agnew, who was the running mate for President Nixon. Spiro Agnew was forced to resign following a corruption investigation while he was still a Baltimore County executive. It actually coincided with the Watergate scandal as well, which was, as you can imagine, not the greatest of timing.
No, I mean, that's Nixon's shining moment.
On the flip side, if Nixon decides to stay there again, he gets a discount at the Watergate, right?
Yeah, I'm going to do that every single time.
It's like his Pokemon sound.
Wild Nixon appeared!
He would later become the actual 38th president of the United States when, as a result of the Watergate scandal, Nixon resigned his post as the president of the United States to avoid official impeachment.
You thought I forgot it, didn't you? Not me.
In the beginning of the episode, Bob and Jackie's father, along with a small committee in the town, is trying to figure out who they're going to choose to ask Gerald Ford a series of 3 questions.
You know, and in that scene, they do something that is no longer acceptable in most places. The cigar room. A lot of the upperclassmen and the big business owners, they're all just sitting around huffing and puffing on their cigars, getting cancer together, because that's the way you do it.
Fantastic.
Anyway, they decide based on the criteria of Well, it gets a little long and complicated, but they essentially boil it down to what they would call losers. And, which leads Bob to Red. Offers him a chance to ask the president a question. Red accepts and proceeds to try to think about what he's going to ask.
I kind of think it's a little messed up too that they chose Red as the loser, considering in the very beginning portion of the episode they do talk about how he got cut back to part-time on the office that he was working in down at the factory, you know? And a lot of people were losing jobs around then. It's kind of a bummer to think about.
They actually mentioned that in his introduction into the asking of the question, because they sent him up there like, oh, but remember, he's like, I don't know how he keeps food on the table when he's been cut back to half-time at the plant. But he doesn't blame the president for his problems. No, he only blames himself.
Yeah, kick him in the balls while he's bald.
In front of the town. In front of the town.
While he's bald!
So, they decide, Red is trying to decide what question he's going to ask Gerald Ford. Eric comes in with a little nifty note with a question that, and of course it's a bland question. It's pointless, it's completely vanilla, and has no real impact on anything. They give him the question, what is your favorite parade?
And it's messed up too, because not only did they call him a loser, but they wrote the question for him. They took away his whole point of free speech in the matter. Also, we learned that Red's left-handed in this scene. Power to the lefties.
You only paid attention if you're a lefty.
I study human habits.
So proceed to Red going on his first of not very many, actually, now that I think about it, patriotic rants about the America he knew as a boy. And we cut to the assembly, where we have everybody kind of just sitting around, and you see Eric and the gang in trench coats. And just a little bit earlier, they decided they are going to protest by streaking. I don't know why streaking was the option at all.
Because Wangs in the Wind is the American way.
That's good, I like that. So as their political outburst, they decide, hey, we're going to run Wangs in the Wind.
Wangs in the Wind!
You can't say that.
The Hootertown Hounds are free!
Now, prior to this, right before they're all supposed to pull the trigger on it, of course, they all chicken out. But, as they're kind of watching everything proceed, and Red goes up to ask his question, he starts choking. And we're talking sweating, looking around back and forth like someone's gonna freaking come at him from the side.
You know, I think it's kind of weird too that they had Red of all characters be the one who chokes. Also, I thought it was interesting that Hyde was the one who tried to make an excuse to get out of the streaking. Do you think the dog scared him? Does Hyde have a thing against dogs?
It's a good question, because we all know Kelso's just in love with them. Like, if he sees a dog anywhere, he's gonna play with it. But yeah, you don't really see Hyde react or work with animals too much in the series at all now that I think about it.
I think that goes to a little bit to Hyde's inability to attach to anything. Thanks, Mom and Dad!
Yeah, I think just Hyde's, you kind of see it as his hatred towards authority figures and whatnot. But once it actually comes to facing those authority figures, he's like, yeah, I'm good.
Right, I'm cool when we all gather together, but when we go out with a torch and pitchforks, I'll catch you guys later. I'm gonna go home.
And another funny part to me is that Red had such a hard time at the podium down there after he watched Gerald Ford literally trip his way to the podium. Kevin, give us some backstory on that, please.
What a doofus!
Okay, so actually he had a really bad reputation as being a clumsy dude. Like, I actually found out that when he served as a navigation officer on the USS Monterey, he was almost washed overboard, but was actually saved by his own clumsiness by getting his foot stuck in a drain. Not only that, they made a statue to commemorate said event and place it on the ship when it's not actually out in use.
Can you imagine that? Your only sole moment to be made into a statue, to be immortalized for eternity, and it's over some goof of you being a freaking loser? Jeez, step up to the plate, Ford, like a man.
Some clowns deserve to be commemorated.
Yeah, and the reputation doesn't stop there. Like in December of 75, which I think was about a year before this, he had famously fell down the steps of Air Force One. And not long after that, apparently he fell up the stairs of Air Force One.
Let me tell you what, it takes a really, really skilled drunk to fall up the stairs. Normally, it's gravity taking hold, but no, drunk gives you anti-gravity skills.
Oh, I've fallen upstairs, and I was not drunk, and that is embarrassing to say. But I was walking upstairs, someone caught me with a really good joke, and I missed the step, and I went poof, just tripped forward. I don't know how you trip forward, but I went literally up the stairs. It was annoying.
So it's kind of like when you land on one of those special spaces in Candyland.
Yeah, the part where gravity kicks you in the butt upward instead of you falling back like it
Take the shortcut to Grandma's house, straight up those stairs.
But you gotta go by an old Irish saying, no matter how much you stagger and such, you can never fall off of the ground.
We can always count on Kevin to bring in the Irish.
So once having become president, he would finish that term. After that, he was not voted back in when the opportunity came.
Obviously, can you imagine how many times he fell on the campaign trail?
I imagine it was very Urkel-esque. If you, yeah. One of the most heinous actions that Gerald Ford actually committed through his presidency was actually the first one he ever made, and that was when he pardoned Nixon for his participation in the Watergate scandal. Nixon is actually responsible for the Watergate scandal, and Kevin's actually going to explain to you exactly what that was.
Over to you, Kev.
Well, just briefly, we know Watergate has been synonymous with people doing corrupt things, which is exactly what happened here. Now, the whole Watergate scandal got its name by by Nixon's goons trying to break into the Democratic National Committee headquarters, which happened to be at the Watergate Hotel, which is where it got its name. And he was not only were they breaking in before this, Nixon was actually bugging the offices of political rivals and whatnot too. So that was in a nutshell. That's basically what was going on with that whole scandal.
You know, I heard that a lot of it was exposed by the janitor, so I guess it wasn't the butler who did it.
You gotta pay attention to the background players. If you're only super focused on one thing, you don't tie up your loose ends.
Or if you want to believe Hollywood, it was Forrest Gump.
It was always Forrest Gump. Watch the movie, guys.
Now, previously, before he burned his political career to the ground, Nixon actually was the vice president for Eisenhower when he was in office. He became the 37th president after that, but was the first one to resign from office following explained scandal. Nixon was also renowned for his foreign policy. He was actually able to get along with the world despite his very Archie Bunkeriness. But he was responsible for the end of the Vietnam War, as well as the forced military draft. And he was actually one of the instrumental hands in the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency.
So, good on you there, Nixon. But, you know, he was one of the 3 presidents that had been impeached. Him, along with Clinton, and, what's that guy's name? Oh, yeah, Donald Trump. That guy. But Nixon resigned before it was able to go through all the way, so I guess he kind of escaped the fate. Nice band, by the way.
I did not get impeached.
They never impeached me, but I was forced out of office. I wasn't fired. Once they're at the assembly, they're discussing what they're going to do leading up to the streaking. And there is a reference to the Oscar Mayer Weenie Mobile. What this was very funnily shaped giant hot dog on wheels.
It was a wiener on wheels.
Driven by hot doggers, typically female. They were the drivers for the weenie mobile. They would drive around and they would throw weenie whistles to people on the street. Leading to the quote from Hyde, 2 girls in a phallic RV driving around, handing out things you blow. What a great country.
Now, I gotta ask, is hot dogging an act per se, or is it just an enthusiast's nickname?
If you look at this meme that I posted on Instagram earlier, I'm pretty sure that's on there, but I cannot say for what because we can't talk about these things.
So follow us on Instagram.
Please.
Oh, and the other ones too. We're everywhere. We're kind of like the plague. What's that one we had this year? COVID-19. I also thought it was funny when they were deciding whose masks they should wear for the Naked Mile.
Naked Mile. Well, the selection was 3 Snoopies and a Nixon, in which they played the classic game of Not It to find out. And, of course, Eric got Nixon, but that's besides the point. Snoopy is a famous animated beagle from the classic 50s series Peanuts. It started as a comic strip created by Charles Schulz. And as the years have gone on, obviously you've seen it in a million things. There's pretty much a special for every holiday from Valentine's Day to Christmas. So you pretty much get a little bit of Charlie Brown driven depression any time of the year.
You know, one of these days, man, he's gonna get that football. I believe in him.
Yeah, but now we have to wait for our local streaming service to tell us when he gets that football.
He's also the patron saint of fools being tricked by women. Good job, women. Trick those fools.
Not to mention the patron saint of punching bags. He actually just gets verbally assaulted by everyone and he just takes it. I'm surprised there isn't like a Charlie Brown Columbine special.
Womp 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 womp. Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah, that kind of hurt.
Well, anyway, back to Snoopy. Snoopy is the pet and best friend of Charlie Brown, although their relationship is less than perfect, as you see Snoopy quite a bit, along with the rest of the kids, just completely bashing and rejecting Charlie Brown at every turn. Another thing Snoopy is known for is his friendship with that little yellow bird, which Eric later gets tattooed on his butt, Woodstock.
I mean, come on. We all know Woodstock's the real main character of the Peanuts gang.
He's probably, besides Snoopy, he's definitely the most recognizable. Red goes up there. He's kind of stuttering and choking in front of our bumbling ex-president, trying to decide what he's going to ask, or trying to decide whether or not he's going to ask his question or this one about silly parades.
Red's bombing.
So, in an effort to give his dad a boost of confidence and to distract everybody's attention from him, Eric decides, maybe just a little bit of poking from Donna.
Pokey pokey.
Yeah. He strips off his stuff, throws his Nixon mask on, says a wee pee pee, and off he goes into the night. Soon to be chased by Secret Service and Secret Service dogs everywhere.
Nobody wants to tackle a naked guy.
How did they not get caught? There's dogs chasing a naked guy. I mean, I know the Secret Service probably didn't, like you said, didn't want to tackle a naked guy. But there's things dangling, and dogs bite things that are dangling.
I was gonna say, aren't dogs trained with dangling meat?
Hey, maybe the dogs had just eaten dinner and they didn't want to snack on a Vienna sausage. Prior to the lead up, the kids, they're sitting in the cafeteria, they're having their lunch. They're planning the streaking in the cafeteria. And Eric kind of tells everybody they have to keep it hush hush. And if they don't, they have to, because if they don't, Red will nail him to a wall. Which leads to this odd posed picture, which is a direct parody of The Last Supper.
It was friggin' amazing. I really loved how they did that. In fact, it's up there.
The Last Supper was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, and it was painted to depict the reactions of the apostles when Jesus told them that one of them was going to betray them. The painting itself, unfortunately, has not survived the passing of time. There have been multiple restoration attempts on it, but unfortunately there's not much of the original left.
And let's all be real, Hyde might be a little flaky under pressure, but the Judas of the group is friggin' Jackie.
Huh?
So, post-streaking, they're at the house. Red's kind of just hanging out in the living room, and Eric walks into the house. They're having a bit of a discussion about what happened that night, and Eric tells Red he's going to bed, so he hits the stairs, and Red stops him dead in his tracks. And he goes, "Hey, don't wear black socks next time. You look like an ass." And the episode ends with Eric shaking his head in appreciation as he goes to bed for the night.
Those two often bond by shaking their heads at each other. One thing I'd like to note from an earlier part of the episode as well is, in the conversation between Bob and Red on the phone, you notice that it seems they are talking through rotary phones. Not quite. Seeing as though the rotary phone came out in 1892 and had been really put into use around 1906, it couldn't possibly be one of those. You're right. In the 1970s, those were replaced by the DTMF, which sounds like the worst acronym for a dirty deed I've heard in a long time, but they're more of the dial tone phones. Dual tone multi-frequency is what that acronym stands for. You know, send me what you wanted it to be in the comments below. Right down there. Write what you want it to be. Is that your act? Is that one you've heard before? Can you make something relate to it on your own? I want to see your creativity shine, kids.
And if you've seen the countertop versions of those, they are just hefty. They're only about that big, but you could pick them up and use them as a weapon. Somebody breaks into your house, pick up the phone. Poof!
Self-defense and a way to call for help. And honestly, there isn't that much that is as pleasing as hanging up on your nemesis, aggressively slamming the phone again.
Who needs the Louisville Slugger when you can have the Pacific Bell Slugger? There's just a couple things I want to mention, just since we're approaching the end. There's a reference that Kitty makes to the pies that she's making, and one of them was mock apple. I had to look that up because I did not know what it is. And apparently it's pretty much apple pie with crackers instead of apples. And it's same spices, same flavorings and everything. You just use the crackers, because apparently once the crackers break down, that gives it that consistency, that weird like apple pie chunk consistency that you get.
Oh, hey, thanks, Poverty. You created another American favorite.
Yeah, I gotta say, I had no idea what that was either. Mock apple pie? Why would you want to fake apples?
Depression.
Yep.
Dude, fake apples cause me depression. You ever tried to eat one of those foam pieces that were laying on the table as some sort of decoration?
I legit bit into a wax orange once when I was a kid. I'm lucky I was a kid, because it would have made it so much worse if I was older.
They would have had pictures of that.
I'd hope so, but no. There's just one more thing I want to say. With all this quarantine stuff going on, everybody's been pretty much stuck off and on inside with their families, or whoever you guys have designated as your family during this time. In this episode, Kitty kind of tells a story about how she regretted telling a family member not to come to her graduation because of something as simple as an at-bat or a heavy accent. Well, that doesn't necessarily apply to something as severe as a quarantine. I can imagine after a year of being shut inside with your families, it has been you've been less than amicable to each other. Just remember, there's a quote in this episode that says, "All families are embarrassing, and if they're not embarrassing, they're dead." But that thought applies to pretty much every emotion. If your families are angering, if your families are embarrassing, if your families depress you, if they weren't there to do it, they wouldn't be there. So appreciate them for whatever you have them for.
And with that warm fuzzy, we're going to go ahead and sign off now. Thanks for coming back, guys. We'll see you next time. I'm the Fox.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Gordo. Thanks for watching.
Keep it real.